When my parents first divorced, I was worried and scared that they both start new families and forget about me. Around this time, I had a dream. It was Christmas, and we were all doing our shopping. I had some money to go and buy my parents and family some gifts. All of a sudden, out of the corner of my eye, I see my mother. I was so happy to see her. I decided to run up to her and give her a big hug and wish her a Merry Christmas. My mother was with 2 younger children, and I kept calling her, "Mommy, Mommy," but she didn't even know who I was. She was calling the little children her little children, and they were calling her Mummy. I felt so strange and awkward. I'd seen my mother in a different family, and she didn't even recognize me. But luckily this was only a dream, because even though my parents got divorced, they do continue to love me as much as ever.
When I was little, my mom told me that I was in my crib at about the age 2. I was just sitting there, and I heard my parents fighting, and they were screaming and yelling at each other, and I yelled at them, "Stop." But now that they did get a divorce, there's like no more fighting. It's so much better now.
They would fight a lot, and I was really young, and I didn't really know what was happening, so I would think it was my fault. And I'd just sit in my room and not know what to do, and I found that really sad. And I always thought maybe it was my fault.
Not guilty.
My 3 wishes were that me and my dad and my mom, my brothers, could just start over fresh. And we could have a big house and just live a good life.
Before my parents divorced, they used to fight a lot. Usually, my mom's sentences began with, "You never," and my dad's answer began with, "You always."
You never take out the garbage.
You always nag and complain.
No, I don't.
Yes, you do.
No!
Yes.
That's when I would start to hum quite loudly to show that I wasn't listening, and that even if I was listening, I didn't care. Every time my parents fought, I wished they were at the daycare. Manon would come over and say, "You two stop that immediately."
Here we go again.
Same old stuff. I mean, come on, I'm tired of arguing like this. Fine, I'll take out the garbage. Just don't talk to me the rest of the night.
Sometimes there was a really bad fight, and then my mom always ended up talking about Grandma. She'd say, "Your mother makes me sick."
When you love your child, it's forever, no matter what. But when you love your husband, well...
What about Cinderella and the prince? They loved each other forever.
If you have a fairy godmother, it's a lot easier.
Then my parents decided to divorce. Mom moved out into her own house, around the corner from Dad. That way, I could be with Mom some of the time, and with Dad some of the time. They called it shared custody, and the thing they shared was me. Suddenly, my parents weren't fighting anymore. Dad came over to Mom's new house to help her set it up.
You take the toaster oven.
No, you'll need it.
Now that you don't fight anymore, why don't you get married again?
God forbid!
Dad didn't say anything, but I could tell he agreed. They both looked as though they'd seen an 8-headed monster taking over planet Earth. Grown-ups are so weird.
My parents never liked to talk directly to each other. My mother would tell me things to go tell my dad. Like, for instance, my mom would say, "Samara, tell your dad you need a new winter coat." And then my dad would tell me, "Samara, tell your mom that money's tight and that maybe next week we can talk something out." Eventually, I just got very tired and fed up of being this messenger, and I said, "This has got to stop, and I think it's about time that both of you started talking together, face-to-face or over the phone."
I live with both parents back and forth. I had to stay at my dad's Monday, Tuesday, and my mom's Wednesday, Thursday, and the weekends alternated. My mom lived in Dollar, and my dad lived in Tremont. My bus takes about an hour and a half. I have to bring all my books, my clothes to my dad's, back and forth to my mom's. I don't like doing that. It's really annoying. My friends don't know where to go, to my mom's or to my dad's, where to call.
Aha! We'll cut the child in two and give half to one and half to the other.
No!
You mustn't. It will hurt the child. Give him whole to my ex.
Wait a minute. Calm down. I was only testing to see which parent has the child's best interests at heart. He isn't merchandise that you can cut in half. The child needs both of you. Live near each other so the child can go to both parents.
I finally convinced my mom to let me live at my dad's house. My mom remarried and has 2 new kids. My father has more time for me and understands me more. My friends live closer to my father's house. My school's closer. I don't have to travel back and forth constantly like I used to.
Yes, I do miss my dad because he lives far away, and I only see him 5 times a year.
I see him maybe once a year if I'm lucky. Sometimes at Christmas, but this year he didn't come see me at Christmas. He didn't. He just sent me money and that was it.
Well, I wish that I could live in the same city as him. That way I could see him and my family. And sometimes we could like bond, like 2 men together. We could go camping in the wilderness. We could play pool. He could teach me how to shave, how to drive a car, and we could talk about girls if I have girl problems.
Well, see, a lot of people, said that they had their dad and they did stuff with their dad. They played catch with their dad. So I said that my dad was a race car driver and he died in a crash. So, because I said that because, so if they said to see my dad, and I just said, well, he died in a crash, so they wouldn't have to see him.
I'm sad. Sometimes I'm happy, but mostly I miss him. Sometimes I cry. Sometimes I watch TV to get it off my mind.
Well, I miss him on Father's Day at school when we do a card. Well, I don't have anybody to give it to since my dad lives in Denmark and they don't have Father's Day in Denmark. I want to give it to him and see his face, the happy smile on his face when I give it to him. It's supposed to be my dad's job, but since he's not there, it makes me the man of the house. have to do his duty. I worry about my mom and my brother and my sisters because my dad isn't there, and so I have to be the man of the house, even though I'm the only kid. I worry that something bad will happen to them.
One day when I came home from school, my mom was sitting on the living room floor and crying. I got a bit scared, figuring something awful has happened.
Don't worry, dear. There isn't anything wrong.
I tried to think of what could be bothering her. The only thing I could think of was that it was April, and for 3 days we had really hot weather, and all the snow melted. And then suddenly we had this big snowstorm. The other thing I thought might be the reason was that my room's always a mess. Do you want me to go clean my room?
No, I tidied up today.
I decided to phone Dad. My parents are divorced, and I only see my dad on weekends. But I like to keep him informed about everything. Mom's crying and can't stop. Could you talk to her? But talking to Dad only made Mom cry harder. She said she was completely empty, and everything was hopeless. Dad offered to pick me up, and that I could stay with him, but I said no, because I had to stay and help Mom. She loves watching the movie Annie Hall while eating chocolate chip cookies. So I picked those up for her.
You are the best kid a mother could have. I hope I haven't weighed you down with all my problems.
I even got out of doing my homework.
Sometimes people just get down. They're happy they have great kids, but they're down about other stuff.
But then I had the weirdest dream. The next time I saw Mom, I knew she wasn't down anymore. Because when I threw my coat on the floor, she stood there and waited.
Who do you think's picking that up?
Then she made me do all my chores. You're always telling me what to do.
I'm a parent. That was the job description when I applied.
For dessert, we had blueberry pie, Mom's specialty. She ate 3 slices.
Oh, I'm ready to burst.
Well, at least you won't feel empty.
Oh.
2 days after that, the snow all melted. And this time, it was really spring.
It's like I've inherited a whole new family. I have my stepdad, and I have my new little brother, and he's really, really cute. I love him. And then I also have my stepbrother and stepsister from my stepdad's previous marriage. At the beginning, I wasn't sure if I should get along with him or not, because he wanted to treat me like I was his real daughter. He wanted to be really close with me, and I wasn't so sure if I needed another father. And what happened was he kept trying to be really, really close with me, and I kept pulling away. And I remember once about last year, what happened was I was in my bed, and it was a school day. My dad came in to wake me up. And I I just slammed the door on him. I didn't want to be woken up. I was still tired, even though I needed to go to school. And then I found out after that he was very hurt about the whole thing, and I didn't even know that I had done anything wrong. And after, you feel really, really guilty. So I'm learning to accept him, and I'm trying to be much nicer, and I get along really well with him. I love my stepdad.
At first, I didn't know how to get angry. I didn't know if I should scream, if I should, just talk about it, because I never really talked about the divorce with my friends. I just never thought anybody would really understand.
To avoid yelling at my parents, sometimes I'll go for a bike ride, or I'll just slam a door really hard, or I'll put on some really loud music, or I'll just call someone that I could really trust and talk to them about it.
But afterwards, I started gearing my anger towards political issues, such as feminism, because after the divorce, I saw so many injustices, especially with the legal system and everything.
I'm finding more now that when I get angry at my parents, I scream at them like they would scream at each other. I don't know why it happens. I can't really control it.
At first I thought, yeah, sure, I'll get married. But after thinking about it a lot, I've decided that I don't think I will get married. First of all, because my grandfather divorced my grandmother, which is my mother's father. And now my father divorced my mother. So I guess it's kind of like a cycle. I'm next in line, with my boyfriend. And I'm very much afraid of that happening.
Well, on one hand, it's, of course I'm going to get married because, I want to have children, I want to have a life like that and everything. But then on the other hand, what's the point in getting married if you're just going to get a divorce?
I guess some people have normal families. Dad, mom, sister, brother, dog, goldfish. No such luck here. My parents were married until I was 8. The problem was my dad. Around once a week, he'd drink too much. My sister Vicky and I would hide in the closet. I felt lucky to have Vicky. And one day I was in school and we were just getting ready for a test. I was really wishing I didn't have to take it. And suddenly, like my wish coming true, the secretary opens the door and calls me out. I was glad, but I was also scared because the first thing I thought was, what if something happened to Mom and we'd be left only with Dad? I was sure glad to see Mom there. She looked awful, though. The car was jammed with luggage and furniture. You could see she had packed in a hurry. We drove to Vermont to Grandma's house, and I never saw anyone from my school again. My dad went to California to stay with his brother and went to a rehab. Why couldn't he have gone to a rehab when he was married to Mom? Anyhow, at first when my parents split, my mom said she'd had it with men. Well, that lasted about 2 weeks. last year, Mom got married. She married the dentist she was working for. Frank, that's his name, he's okay, but he has a million rules. Elbows off the table. Knife on the right, fork on the left. My mom never cared about stuff like that before, but now she says we have to do what our stepdad says. And floss, floss, floss. All day we have to brush and floss. And he stands and watches to make sure we're doing it right. Frank has 2 kids from his first marriage, Sam and Peter. And then 1, Joey, from another marriage. So now I have 3 brothers all of a sudden. The youngest one, Joey, he's 6. He lives down the street, and his mom married someone with 4 kids who are his stepbrothers and sisters, but not mine. Though one of them, Alice, is my best friend. And Alice, who's my stepdad's ex-wife's husband's daughter, spends every weekend with her mom, who just had a baby with a new husband, so Alice has 1 stepsister with her mom, and 1 stepbrother, Joey, with her dad, who's also my stepbrother, along with Sam and Peter, who only visit twice a month. The first thing my stepdad does when Sam and Peter come to visit is check their gums to make sure they've been brushing right. I guess things aren't too bad now. But I hardly ever see my dad, and he has a girlfriend who thinks she's Miss Universe or something. My social worker at school says that I have to find ways to channel my anger. But it's hard not to get mad at how everything keeps changing all the time. But Mom says there's one thing that won't ever change. She says she'll always love me, no matter what happens.